In the last video, I talked about why even secure people still experience anxiety in relationships, how the nervous system naturally reacts to uncertainty, and how security isn't about eliminating those reactions, but learning how to relate to them differently. This video takes that idea one step further, because once you understand that anxiety will appear sometimes, then the real question becomes, what do you do when it does? Many people think emotional regulation means just getting rid of anxiety, but regulation isn't about making the feelings disappear. It's about allowing the feelings to pass through your system without letting them immediately control your behavior. That's important because in relationships, what you do next often shapes what happens next. The message you send, the tone you use, whether you push, withdraw, shut down, over explain, or pause, all of that affects the dynamic. So, regulation matters because your next action or reaction can either create more pressure or more safety. If you've ever felt anxious in a relationship, you might recognize how quickly the mind starts trying to resolve that discomfort. You might feel the urge to send another message, ask for reassurance, try to clarify something immediately, or sometimes the opposite happens. You pull away, you go quiet, you distance yourself emotionally to feel less vulnerable and to feel more in control of the situation. Both reactions come from the same place. Your nervous system is trying to reduce discomfort as quickly as possible. Not because something is wrong with you, but because uncertainty can feel threatening to the body and as something that needs to be solved right now. And this is where patterns begin. Some people move closer when anxiety appears. Some people move away. Some people try to fix the moment. Some try to escape it. But underneath all those reactions is the same impulse, your nervous system wanting relief. And when you don't know that's what's happening, you often mistake urgency for truth. You think, I need to do something right now. But often what you actually need is to regulate first. So where does regulation begin? It often begins with something very simple, which is slowing down the moment. When anxiety appears, the first step isn't action, it's awareness. You notice what's happening in your body. Maybe your chest feels tight. Maybe your breathing becomes shallow. Maybe your thoughts start moving faster. Maybe your attention becomes locked onto the other person. Maybe you feel a strong urge to do something immediately, like fix, explain, check, reach, or pull away. That noticing matters because the moment you notice it, you're no longer completely inside the reaction. You're beginning to observe it, and that observation creates space. Instead of reacting immediately, you pause, not dramatically, not as a technique you perform, but a real pause. You don't send the message immediately. You don't say the first thing that your anxiety wants you to say. You take a breath. You allow yourself and your body a moment to settle. That pause might only be 30 seconds or a few minutes, but it creates space between the feeling and the action. And that space is where regulation happens. Once that space opens up, another helpful shift becomes possible. You redirect your attention back to your own life because anxiety sometimes narrows our focus. We become absorbed in the relationship dynamic, waiting for a response, analyzing messages, trying to interpret signals, reading into tone. But when you return your attention to your day, your work, your friends, your environment, even something simple as your breathing or the next thing in front of you, your nervous system begins to widen again. And that widening often reduces the intensity of the anxiety naturally. Over time, these small moments of regulation change something important. They teach your nervous system that uncertainty does not need to be solved immediately, that emotions can move through you without forcing action, and that realization creates a kind of steadiness in the body, a quiet calmness, a sense that you can stay present even when the moment feels uncertain. This doesn't happen all at once, but gradually, one moment at a time. Now, regulation doesn't mean you stop caring, doesn't mean you suppress your emotions. It simply means you give your nervous system time to settle before deciding what to do next. And very often, once the body settles, the situation looks clearer. The urge feels less urgent. The story in your mind loses some of its intensity, and your next response becomes more aligned. This is why regulation matters so much in relationships, because when anxiety is running the interaction, you you don't just feel different, you show up differently. Your words change, your energy changes, your behavior changes, even if you don't intend any of it. The other person can still feel that. But when you regulate first, your behavior begins to come from steadiness instead of fear. And that changes the relationship dynamic over time. But there's another layer to this that's important. It's one thing to regulate when you're alone, when you have time and space to notice what's happening, when the moment is quiet. But many of the hardest moments in relationships don't happen when you're alone. They happen when you're face to face with the other person, when emotions are rising, when a conversation is unfolding in real time. And staying regulated in those moments can feel much harder. So in the next video, we're going to talk about how to stay present and regulated when you're actually with the other person and the interaction is happening live, because learning how to stay steady in those moments is what prevents many conflicts from escalating in the first place.